Now NewsNation media contributor and founding editor of Mediaite, Colby Hall. Colby, I'm looking at your article now titled "It's Gone Too Far. Mark Zuckerberg Ends Facebook Fact-Checking, Blaming Legacy Media and Inclusive Movement." And every time I refresh, you've got more and more comments to this. So first of all, is this a good thing, and how are people reacting?
Well, I think it's a thing. I think it's an obvious sort of natural conclusion. I mean, I think elections have consequences. And I think when he says it's gone too far with regard to sort of content moderation, that reflects what a lot of people are thinking about sort of our over-reliance on identity politics and the pendulum swinging back the other way. And Facebook has long seen itself as sort of the town square. If you were in the town square and someone said something that you found to be offensive, you wouldn't call the cops on them. You would sort of ignore them, right? So in that regard, I think it makes a lot of sense, right? Where the questions arise is if, there's news outlets that are owned by China and Russia who purposefully post disinformation. And so are we going to leave that to community notes? The devil will be in the details. And I suspect that they'll be on top of that. But it's a stunning pivot from Mark Zuckerberg being kind of the nerdy kid at MIT to this sort of curly-haired, necklace-wearing jiu-jitsu guy who's clearly appealing to the Trump administration when a big antitrust suit they're facing in April. So it's a pretty stunning pivot on a number of levels.
And then you've got Dana White on the board. What does that really mean for Facebook and the direction it's going?
Well, Dana White, is a huge friend and ally of Trump's. And I think, another sort of big announcement was hiring Joel Kaplan, who was a former deputy chief of staff under George W. Bush and a former vocal critic of Facebook censorship. He was the guy that appeared on Fox and Friends and just gushed praise on Trump in what was seen to be almost a little dear leader. Basically, Facebook's position now and Meta's position is that Trump is all about free expression, and so too are we. Trump once said that he was going to put Mark Zuckerberg in prison for life. Cut to late November, Mark Zuckerberg was dining with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. So I think Facebook's pivot on moderation reflects what Elon Musk was doing on X. And it's a clear signal that they want to work hand in glove with the Trump administration. I think leaving it to, sort of community notes makes a lot of sense. It takes a lot of responsibility from Facebook, who sees itself as a utility. But on one end, there's the wisdom of crowds that, sort of makes good decisions. There's also a mob mentality concern. So, does this take away the conflict and censorship issues? No. Does it take the responsibility away from Facebook and Meta? That's the idea. And does it appeal to a Trump administration when they're facing a big antitrust suit? I think that's the goal here. So Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg's a tech bro, and he's getting in line with his fellow tech bros in getting a good relationship with Trump, and that's smart business.
Yeah. What I also hear you saying, Colby, is this is about Facebook's own survival, right? In a growing social media world where people have more and more options, Facebook has to stay relevant and timely.
100%. And, Zuckerberg said it, he blamed legacy media for putting too much attention on sort of both COVID disinformation and election interference in 2016. And he says, that's done. We're over that. We over course corrected, and now we want to get back. I love the pendulum metaphor as a moderate. Mm-hmm. It goes too far one way and it swings back the other. It rarely stops, and it never stops in the middle. It always overswings. So I suspect that we'll see some of that. But eventually it swings back and forth and ends in the middle where reasonable people can be. You shouldn't be getting news from Facebook. People do. I think there's a media literacy issue. I think we should be a little bit more skeptical about the information, and we shouldn't be leaving it to Zuckerberg and Facebook to be our arbiters of truth. That's why journalists have important roles with objective standards, not opinion people that you see on a lot of cable news competitors, but true journalists that seek the truth and facts. Again, it's a good reason why NewsNation exists, so that, you can get both sides of an argument and not leave it to your friend, your neighbor on Facebook saying crazy stuff.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.